and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the next item is the approval of the final agenda. Is there a motion to approve the final agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
just so
sir.
you're aware, item B under public hearings will have to be continued due to a title change requiring re-advertisement.
Yes, so we'll strike that. Any other additions, corrections, changes to the final agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move. Go ahead.
So moved.
Moved and
Second.
seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item, as always, is public comment. Madam Clerk.
Patty Rittinger, sorry. Yep, I'll let it.
Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, and Councilman. I am Patricia Rittinger, and I am a resident of Island Winds Condominiums and a permanent resident and a registered voter of Florida. My family first came to Fort Myers Beach in 1980 as vacation renters, and we did so yearly until 1986, when we purchased a unit at Island Winds, mainly because of the pristine beach. Over the years, we have seen the beach grow by accretion from 100 to 800 plus feet. Despite going through a number of hurricanes and tropical storms. Now, you wish to have the FDEP classify our section of beach to critically eroding, which will allow sand to be brought in, forming dunes, and to also allow plantings. This will change the beach as we know it. I want to show you some pictures of our beach, which will illustrate that it is not eroding. Can I press this one?
Nope, it's up there.
Oh, it's up there, okay. If you look here, you can see the soft sand, you can see the footprints in the sand, the soft white sand. Another one. Another one showing that. And now, from yesterday, you can see that you can see the number of people, visitors, residents that use the beach for sports. These are sections of the beach that will be changed if plantings, et cetera, go on. Here is an overview of the beach. You see the expanse of it. Back in the front, we have where the cabanas are. In the back, you have where the sports is taken care of. If this plan goes through, that beach will be cut in more than half. You will have plantings, dunes, and you certainly will not have this participation as we have now. Finally, here again, we see all of the people that are using the beach and the expanse of the beach. The other thing that I would like to ask about is cost. The last time I was here, it was mentioned that cost was $2 to $3 million, but that we would get it back from the state and everything. But I'd like to point out that I am part of the state's budget and the county's budget and the state of Florida's budget. So that you just saying it's 2-3 million, it's really the whole cost that I'm going to have to help finance.
Okay, Patty, you're going to have to wrap it up now.
Okay. We respectfully request that the town not change our classification and allow Island Winds to continue owning and maintaining our own beach. Thank you.
Lisa Price, and after Lisa will be Joseph Shiner.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. My name is Lisa Price, and I'm here as the property manager of Island Winds, and I am here to represent our 100 owners and hundreds of guests that stay at Island Winds each year. Many of our units are rental property. Most of our guests have been coming to Fort Myers Beach for 20-plus years to enjoy the sunshine, the beach, dining, and shopping. 80% of our guest evaluations include comments regarding our pristine, expansive beach. The beach is what brings them here year after year. Our beach is ever growing. We have approximately 800 feet of white sand that is used for many activities: volleyball, soccer, kite flying, bocce ball, etc. Our beach is not eroding. Our beach has been professionally maintained for the past 50 years at no cost to the taxpayers. Installing plants on our beach would economically affect our rental volume and negatively impact the value of our property and many more properties along this section of the beach. We respectfully request that you do not reclassify our beach as critically eroding. Thank you.
Joseph Shiner. And after Joseph will be Rick Sabina.
Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, and council members, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm a resident of Island Winds on Fort Myers Beach, a property owner and a voter. I would like to address you on the beach renourishment on the south end of the beach, from the Outrigger Hotel to the Wyndham Hotel, otherwise known as R198 to R202. My wife and I purchased this property about 4 years ago on the second floor of Island Winds, and we specifically picked this part of the beach for its white powder sand, golf, and sunset views. You can imagine my shock not long ago to find out that our representatives, who I voted for, to protect our interests, are now trying to change our beach. The town submitted to FDEP an application to establish critical erosion beach status on December 9th. Obviously, this has been discussed for many months before. As of today, 4 months later, neither the town or the staff has asked for any input from any stakeholders, residents, condo owners, hotels, timeshare, etc., on the beach that impact us. This, to me, seems contrary to the way representative government should act. This stretch of beach supplies 8.5% or $300,000 of the ad valorem tax for this town, so it's significant. I have first learned of this on the agenda for the March 21st Town Council meeting was published. Therefore, the town has put the residents and the property owners and the businesses on this part of the beach at a disadvantage by applying for the permit and acting with FDEP prior to even announcing to us. I stand here not as an engineer or an EPA expert, but a regular person, an interested party in this, to the process, to hope that the council and the FDEP will give us adequate time for all views to be considered. To do this, we intend to hire professionals, including engineers and EPA experts, to provide data, observations, second opinions related to the positions of the representatives of the town's engineer, and the town staff. In the last council meeting, the town engineer stated at the 1 hour and 27-minute mark of the meeting that our beach is not eroding. No sand is needed for a 25-year storm. It's a remote possibility of any erosion. So the town does not have to apply for the permit for this area in the future because there's really no erosion. This is only being done for continuity of management. It seems to me that your own consultant is saying that only for convenience and not for anything necessary. Thank you.
Rick Sabina, and after Rick is Dave Nussbaum.
Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, and council members, I'm going to briefly finish Joe's statement. So I'm going to just continue to go on, and then I'm going to provide something of my own. So this is Joe's conclusion. In addition, there was discussion about the ponding on our beach. Again, the engineer stated this beach is not eroding, but accreting. This slate ponding I walk through and the maximum depth is about 6 inches for about 3 months in the year. It's not of any concern to our property owners, businesses, and renters. The beach is raked continually. I've been all over the Caribbean, Atlantic coast, and Hawaii, and I would say that our beach is better than anything I've seen in my life. There was also information presented regarding the construction easement. As I understand it, this is a negotiation, but requires an 80% vegetation frontage. I am totally against vegetation being planted along our beach. This beach has not had dunes or vegetations for over 50 years, and I would argue that Mother Nature intended it to be this way. In closing, I feel strongly that any change to our beach, considering the engineer's statements, would be a government overreach and have an overall negative impact to our beach. That concludes Joe's statement. As for me, I am the current patriarch of a legacy family at Island Winds. I shared Joe's perspectives on this matter. My parents purchased our Gulf Front unit in 1975, shortly after the towers were constructed. Originally purchased as a business investment, my mother took one look at the pristine view of the Gulf, fronted by an approximate, at that time, 100-foot beach, and declared to her husband, "Do not sell this place." Mom passed in 2010, and Island Winds was her favorite place in the world, and as it has become for myself, my wife, our 4 children, and now our 4 grandchildren. We have created priceless family memories here and enjoy recreating on the entire slice of pristine beach, which has grown to over 800 feet, as you heard. Not to mention the tens of thousands of visitors who enjoy our stretch of uncrowded beach each year. I encourage you to visit and walk the beach and witness for yourself the baseball, football, and soccer games in the sand, and perhaps the paramotorers who occasionally use our beach to take off and land and then soar over our coastline to the enjoyment of all below. Where else on the beaches of this island can you partake or observe these types of recreational activities? We are a destination stretch of beach that houses approximately 1,000 private rental units, and many other visitors access it. Certainly the annual contribution to the local economy provided by these tens of thousands of visitors should be a consideration in your beach renourishment plans. Do you want them to look elsewhere? In my opinion, an FDEC classification of critically eroding is based on twisted logic, and in reference to one of Joe's
You have to wrap it
statements,
up, sir.
I also consider this to be government overreach. Thank you for your
Thank
attention.
you very much.
Dave Nussbaum, and after Dave is Tony D. Cristoforo.
Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, and Councilman. My name is Dave Nussbaum, and I'm president of Island Winds Condominium, located at R201 of the town's coastal map. On April 7th, the Town Management and Planning Committee will meet. Those in attendance will vote to have the Florida Department of Environmental Protection classify our section of beach as critically eroding. They also state they wish to re-engineer our existing beach. This reclassification is being done under an administrative loophole identified as continuity of management. The town claims we will not lose any rights as landowners because of this critically eroding classification. We can opt out of adding sand. We can opt out of contour raking. We can even opt out of FEMAs. But there is no mention of us being able to opt out of dune plantings. If FTEP grants the town's request, our fear is that the town will use existing Florida statutes and new ordinances to begin creation of dunes without our permission. There is a legal term for this. It's called judicial taking. Today, I formally ask the town's assurances that any re-engineering of our beach, including plantings, will not occur without our permission. This is a beach of accretion built by Mother Nature for over the last 50 years. It is its own natural defense against storms. This was confirmed by your own town coastal engineer. Island Winds will continue to work with the town on every venue possible. However, the town has stated it is their desire to re-engineer our beach. Adding tons of smothering sand will kill the existing ecosystem on our beach. Planting grasses across 80% of our beach will take away huge sections of recreational areas. The developing foliage and dunes will restrict our view and our beach access rights. This is a price too high. Our goal as property owners is to protect our unique natural wonder. It is what brings tens of thousands of visitors to the beach and to this end of the island. We ask you respect our wishes and not pursue your request to reclassify our beach as critically eroding. Thank you.
Tony DeCristoforo, and after Tony will be John King.
Just put this right here.
Yep.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Town Council members. We have a request into Town Hall for a permit to replace the broken lights on our property that Hurricane Irma destroyed. We know we are in the queue for consideration, but cannot find out where we are.
What's your property, sir?
Ocean Harbor,
Thank you.
I'm gonna say that shortly, yeah. Our goal is to find out if the permit will move forward or if there is something we need to do to finish the process. Hurricane Irma destroyed about 50% of our pole lights. I am one of 150 families who reside at Ocean Harbor, 4745 and 4753 Estero Boulevard. We have purchased and received our poles and fixtures from Frontier Lighting, who belong to the Turtle Consortium. That is one of the reasons we chose them. We hired Florida Lighting Maintenance to do this job, and they in turn hired Impact Permitting to guide our efforts through the permitting process. We have about $200,000 into this process. We actually have all the products sitting in our parking lot. When Hurricane Irma ripped through Florida, we lost both roofs on our 2 towers. It took years in a lawsuit to get any money from our insurance company. The roofs came first, of course, and finally now we have been able to fund this lighting project. Our safety and security and property values are at stake here. Our old lighting system is 30 years old. Our new design uses down lighting to minimize stray light. Pole lights outside our gate facing Estero Boulevard are turtle-friendly amber lights. Lights within our gates have shielding to ensure stray light cannot be seen from the beach. We have used a professional photometric survey company, SLS Lighting, and that's what that is, to adequately relight our property. The photometric study should have been presented with our application by Impact Permitting Company. I have lots of copies with me if you'd like to see them. We ask that you please issue a permit or a decision to fix the damage caused by Hurricane Irma. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John King, and after John King is George Repetti.
Roger, would you make a note to bring up his situation later on? That last speaker, some unanswered questions there that.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest, I don't know if any other speakers are on the same subject, that I've asked staff to bring Jason Green, not Jason Green, Chad out front to chat with the gentleman, sir.
You hear that, sir?
There's a staff member that's going to come out to the front counter to talk to you about your issue. If you want to head out there, his name is Chad. Okay, he should be out there in a few minutes for you.
Okay, next.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm John R. King. As a member of the Board of Directors, I'm representing the owners of the Islands End Condo Association. We're located at 8400, 8402, and 8403 Estero Boulevard. I, along with other condo associations, appeared before you last month seeking a change in the Sea Turtle Glass Ordinance. Felt like we'd made some headway with the council, but it feels like the wheels of the government need to be greased a little. because the March 29th issue of the Fort Myers Beach Observer has an article stating window tinting regulations could be scaled back. The town manager is quoted as saying, "We're looking at what other cities and counties are doing." The town environmental project manager originally said he put the ordinance together with the founder of Turtle Time. Lately, he stated he was tasked with putting the ordinance together in consultation with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, and the Marine Turtle Permit holder for Estero Island. Honestly, Fort Myers Beach Ordinance reads like a cut and paste of the 2020 State of Florida Model Lighting Ordinance for Sea Turtle Protection put out by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Major differences between the two documents appear to be a lack of redress for alleged violators. That was in the state model, as well as a change of glass tinting from the state's 45% to the town's 15%. Let me be of help to the town staff. I spent less than an hour yesterday in perusal of the FWC website. A clear majority of the jurisdictions had 45% for tinting. Several were silent on the percent, and those with 15% standard were Holmes Beach, Jacksonville Beach, and Franklin County. Let's get the change to 45% done, and let's do it soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next.
George Repetti, and then after George is Jennifer Rusk.
Good morning. My name is George Repetti, 8402 Estero Boulevard, part of Islands End Condominium Association. I came here in 1988 and purchased from the gentleman sitting here as the mayor, was the salesman for the developer at the time, and I've known Ray ever since. He knows our beach probably better than anyone. He and his brother worked on our beach, putting in grass and so forth when the developer still had control of our beach. We followed that plan from the very beginning. We put palm trees on our beach. We built dunes on our beach. Over 20 years that I was president at Islands End, we made dunes on our own. We brought sand in when necessary on our own. We don't need to be a critical erosion location. When anytime you get something from the government, you think you're getting it free, you're giving something back in return. I don't care what they say we can or can't do. You get us on that list, you get us in the critical erosion area, and we're going to lose the right, as was explained by Dave. We're going to lose the right to say no. To say no. We don't want any more grass on our beach. We don't want any more trees on our beach. So what I'm asking you to do is think about it. Do not rely on staff. Don't rely on staff. Talk to the people who have done it over the years. If you rely on staff, you're going to get blackout glass like you did, which if I was sitting on the board, I'd be very embarrassed. After watching you guys look at the black glass probably for the first time, knowing that you voted on it without looking at the glass. With the other questions that were raised at the last meeting, which was the question is where the toilets were going to be put. The lady came in who was obviously advising you to, in effect, say, well, I really didn't do a full study on it. And we're talking about steps that you guys took already based on that kind of information. You can't do that. I'm going to leave that and go to the turtle rules now for a minute. We're in the process now of being told what we can and can't do. Last year, we turned Islands End parking garage into a street looking like a street in Amsterdam with red lights on it. We have lights under our building. We can't see where we're walking. You know, there's a few of us at Islands End, not myself, but a few of us that have turned 100 recently. We have 3 people at Islands End that have turned 100, many of them 90. Many of them lived here for 30 or 40 years. Makes it hard for them to see at night with the red lights going on with no other lighting. Now we're told that we can't drive our cars into the parking lot if the lights or the headlights are going to shine on the beach. Now, if you got cars coming into my parking lot that are coming in without lights and we don't have enough lighting in the beach, that gentleman over there is going to have to make contact with Morgan & Morgan for the people, because there's going to be more lawsuits going on with cars without their lights hitting pedestrians who can't see the cars coming. So just,
sir.
thanks, Ray.
Thank you. All right.
Jennifer Rusk.
Good morning, council and town staff, Jennifer Rusk. I'm here to discuss two comments that I had heard at the last town council meeting that struck a chord in me. Two of the comments that were made by town council had to do with communication. People coming up to public comments without doing their homework and really speaking factual. And then the other comment came from you, Ray Murphy, about how it's important that the committee members can feel like they can speak up. So that's what I'm doing here today, is speaking up, not on behalf of my committee, but behalf of just being a community member. I think it is important that people, if you're gonna come up here, it takes a lot of courage. It's been difficult sometimes for me to public speak, but I do it because I care about my community and I care about getting things done properly. So I do encourage people in the community and the committees to work hard before you come up and speak, to understand what the laws are, what the town ordinances are, what the state and federal laws are. I believe that we can do better. I think there is a lack of communication between town council, the town, and the committees and the community. I think there's a bridge that we can gap, that we can close, and that is not solely your responsibility or the town's responsibility to get the information out on all these projects that are coming to the town, but it's also the community and the committee's responsibility as well to understand what is happening. I would ask the town council to please discuss the new lighting and to bring the town Times Square project and the Bayside project back to the forefront in either two ways, either bring it back to some of the committees or just make a decision. The lighting at Times Square and Bayside Park do not follow our own town ordinances. And so I would appreciate that you bring this back up so we can work on that better. Thank you so much.
Anyone else here wish to speak? Yes, sir. Come on up, identify yourself.
I apologize. I didn't know I had to sign up in advance.
That's all right.
I'm Jason Oben. I'm president of Woodland Custom Homes. I'm here to discuss the recently adopted change to the side setback to 15% of the width of the lot. Upon learning of this zoning change, we notified Jason Green that we had a number of projects in various stages that were already under contract that would no longer conform to the new adopted zoning regulations. With some with engineered plans, truss engineering, drainage plans already complete and paid for. We were told that we would have to supply a list of such projects, require documentation, and that they would be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. We immediately supplied this information. A few weeks ago, we submitted our first project that was on that list, and it was rejected for not meeting the newly adopted side setbacks. We were then told that the direction from the council was now that none of these projects would be considered, and all projects not meeting the newly adopted side setbacks would need to apply for a variance. I then followed up with an email to council members and the mayor. I've since had dialogue with a council member about this process. I was told that it was in the works for almost 6 months. I may be mistaken, but going back and watching these public meetings, it appears the first time it was brought up was in December and then voted on in January. It was discussed at that meeting that time could be given to property owners before this was adopted, but ultimately it was decided that the change was going to be immediate. I was also told that they reached out to builders and realtors about this change in advance and received little reply. I did ask why Woodland Homes would not be one of the builders contacted, as we've been building on this beach for 38 years and have built more homes than anyone on this beach in the last 10 years. That seems like an error in judgment not to reach out to us to discuss that. Doing so could have revealed the need for proper notice to be given to homeowners and the financial harm that would be done to our property owners by not giving it. If you're going to make a massive change to the code, then proper notice should be given to allow the property owners who have already spent tens of thousands of dollars on engineered plans to finish their permit submission and apply under the previous code. When changes are adopted for the Florida Building Code, they are announced and a 6 to 9 month advance notice is given, and these changes are comparatively minor. With these property owners are forced to comply with the new rules, they will have massive damages. One, their old plans and trust drawings are trash. Two, the time to get plans redrawn and new trust drawings drawn will be at least 6 months. This delay in getting under construction in a market where the prices of materials and labor is increasing every month could cause another 5 to 8% increase in the price of the home. The result is either 8 to 10 property owners with 6 figures in damages each, or the potential that they choose to no longer move forward, which would cause a loss of revenue of $4 to $8 million for Woodland Homes. I'm not here to change your vision of what you want the beach to look like. I'm here to ask you to consider doing the responsible thing and retroactively giving proper notice to your adopted change and provide a date 3 months from now when it will become effective. This allows you to satisfy the people who have made complaints that precipitated this change, but also protect the property owners who are so heavily invested so that they are not financially harmed by your doing so. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Roger, can you add that to your items to discuss later? What kind of relief? Okay, is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Nope. Okay. Yes, sir. Come on up.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Name?
Excuse me, my name is Matthew Pluskovic.
Hey, Matthew.
Thank you for your time and consideration as a member of the governing body overseeing the stability of my industry through the correct sale and transfer of the limited professional criteria, that being Pwvl and Pfvp licenses. My name is Matthew Pluskovic, owner and operator of Banana Boat Tours and Rides, Inc. The said business is at 3040 Estero Boulevard, Junkanoo Fresh Catch property. The mission statement of my company is to serve the community first and foremost, providing a safe and clean environment for families to enjoy the amenities and warm Fort Myers Beach sunshine. In facilitating the aforementioned, it is also necessary to secure and sustain a modest revenue and value. Banana Boat Tours and Rides acquired the necessary licenses when they became available through the formal process of having my representation create a proper business resolution and bill of sale. The above mentioned licenses were purchased from Matt Russ, former owner of Action Water Sports Incorporated. Having a reputable company established, Banana Boat Tours and Rides, Inc., the licenses were purchased and transferred from the former entity to Banana Boat Tours and Rides, Inc., through the guidance and oversight of the Town of Fort Myers Beach administration. The Bfvp license transfer required going before Town Council to secure and formalize the Bfvp in the name of Banana Boat Tours and Rides, Inc. Having navigated the arduous process respectfully and patiently through the difficult timing of the commencement of COVID-19 lockdowns and restrictions, myself and representation presented a case before council which ultimately granted the transfer of the Bfvp. The proper transfer and sale of the license is important in creating stability in the safety and environmentally sensitive industry. Through the help of the town council and administration, I, with my 18 years of knowledge and experience in the water sports industry, may carry out my mission statement. Banana Boat Tours and Rides now has the opportunity to faithfully serve the community humbly and safely under the protection and guidance of the limited license process. I'm asking you not to open up Chapter 27. It doesn't need to be revised. Things are set in place. I believe we all stand as a community behind each other as a self-governing body to overlook. It's going to open up a whole new can of worms. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Last call. Okay, we'll move on. Thank you. The next item is local achievements and recognitions. Go start down on your end. Do you have anything this morning?
Yeah, well, I just like to, if those of you who've heard, my father passed away over the last weekend, and I just want a few words about him. He was, I was very close with my dad. The family was around him, his kids, his grandkids. It was a difficult and liberating experience. But my dad was always he was a tall, athletic man with a very quirky sense of humor and heartbreakingly blue eyes. He was a veteran, a volunteer fireman. He taught me how to volunteer when he retired. He was busier volunteering than I think he ever was at work. And I was his only son. We were very close. When my sisters were divorced and their sons did not have a father that was around, he made sure that he was the one going to games, coaching the teams, that they had a father figure. They were extremely close through their whole life. He had skills besides being tall and athletic and things that I didn't get in the genetic pool. He was amazing at turning strangers into friends. People responded to him. People that he would just meet in a grocery store line, they would become fast friends by the time they checked out. It's truly amazing, man. I'll miss him a great deal. And his blue eyes worked throughout his life. In his 80s, he pursued and won the heart of an older woman. So my dad, in his 80s, had a cougar. I'll just say that I miss him a lot. It was an amazing experience. He was a great dad. And I'm really thankful for the thoughts that people have expressed. That's it.
Thank you, Bill. Of course, we all extend our condolences and sympathies to you on the council and as well as the whole town itself. Thank you. Jim?
To follow that, beautiful Councilor Veach. I just wanted to reference something that was provided in the last TDC, the Tourist Development Council meeting. Of course, these are record times for our community and for Lee County in terms of visitors and so forth. And one of the things that was interesting to me, and it was referenced at the last CELCAB meeting, is in their data collection, and the TDC does a lot of data collection, they referenced the 3 most requested entities for information in Lee County after beaches and shopping. And under attractions, the top 3 were Ding Darling National Wildlife Refuge, Edison Ford and Winter Estates, and then the Mound House was in the top 3 for the first time ever. And that's a tremendous credit to those who founded the Mound House, to Allison Geeson, who runs the Mound House, to CELCAB, who is the advisory committee that oversees the Mound House, to the Friends of the Mound House, who provide a charitable piece of the puzzle to support the Mound House. And I would be remiss to not mention that they have a wonderful fundraiser planned for Friday, April 8th at 7 o'clock at the Mound House. They're going to have tremendous hors d'oeuvres, and they're going to have a wonderful opportunity for an auction for a wide variety of art items. And if you're a fan of the Mound House, I would encourage you. I think it's just $75 a ticket to support the Mound House and come and participate in that auction and celebrate the wonderful achievements of the Mound House. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sir, Vice Mayor.
I was going to mention the Mound House fundraiser. I'll just endorse that. And I spoke to people over the weekend that are working furiously in their preparations at this point. I'd like to thank Ellen Vaughn and her whole crew for putting together this fundraiser to support this town property. And I can tell you, having attended the event in the past, the food is excellent. The people are fun. It's not your typical boring fundraiser. So please buy a ticket and attend.
Thank you. Anything else?
No.
Councilman Allers.
It was just covered by my 2 previous people, so I won't rehash what's already been said.
And mine was as well. So we'll see you all at the Mound House Friday night. All right. The next item is advisory committee items and reports. Are there any committees to report this morning? Amy?
None.
No. Okay, we'll move on. The next item is a proclamation. This is National Donate Life Month. So we have a proclamation which I'll read. Whereas one of the most meaningful gifts that a human being can bestow upon another is the gift of life. And whereas more than 106,500 men, women, and children are currently on the national waiting list for organ transplantation, of which nearly 4,800 reside in Florida. And whereas a record number of transplants occurred in the calendar year 2021, thanks to the generosity of over 20,000 deceased and living donors. And whereas more than 2.5 million people throughout the country and in Florida benefit annually from tissue transplantation, thanks to thousands of tissue donors. And whereas the need for organ, eye, and tissue donation remains critical as a new patient is added to the national waiting list for an organ transplantation every 10 minutes. And whereas more than 11.8 million Floridians have already registered their decision to give the gift of life through organ and tissue donation at www.donatelifeflorida.org or on their driver's license. And whereas LifeLink of Florida, a nonprofit organization dedicated to the recovery of organs and tissue for transplantation therapy in Florida, with a mission to honor donors and save lives through organ and tissue donation, now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, proclaims April 2022 as Donate Life Month. Given under my hand and the seal of the office of the mayor, this 4th day of April 2022, Raymond P. Murphy, Mayor. So it's Donate Organ and Tissue Month. So if you haven't signed up on your driver's license and are so inclined, you might want to do that or make other provisions to do that. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the March 21, 2022 Town Council meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I have an edit, and page 8, we, on the vote of the grant application, there seems to be 2 votes noted in the end. It said motion denied 3-2 by roll call vote, and then it says 4-1 by roll call vote, and I think that 4-1 is added erroneously.
I'll move to approve as amended.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Just one question, Clerk, Madam Clerk, is that your recollection of the events of
Yeah, it would be the 501.
There's 3-2 and 4-1.
Oh, okay. We'll look into it. We'll watch it again and
Yeah, my recollection was 3-2, but we'll watch the tape.
Okay, any further discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, we'll move on. The next item, we get into the public hearings now. Item A is Ordinance 22-08, Election Qualifying Period. This is the second reading and final public hearing of an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, amending the qualifying period for town council candidates for the November 2022 election and future elections, providing for scrivener's errors, conflicts of law, severability, and providing for an effective date. We'll open the public hearing. Mr. Attorney, everything good?
Been properly noticed, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, very good. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Just as a reminder, I'm sure you've all read the blue sheet and reviewed the item. This item was brought to our attention by the Supervisor of Elections for Lee County in an effort to coordinate and consolidate the dates of all the municipalities and other entities that have qualifying periods. So that's the genesis of where this item came from.
So it's basically moving the qualifying period for our elections from September to June. That's the idea. Okay. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to address this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. Is there any comments by the council, or is there a motion to move the item?
I just have a quick comment. I was contacted by an interested party who expressed concern that because we were moving it up, that some people who are interested in running for council might miss those dates, and asked that we please publicize this. I know Jennifer is always listening to our meetings, so I just like to let her know that that concern has been expressed, and I'm sure she'll get the publicity out there so that potential candidates do not miss this qualifying period.
Madam
And-
Vice Mayor, just to
yes.
that point, after every council meeting, there's a summary of the actions taken by town council and those significant discussions, and that's put out to the media.
Right, and I just think with this, we need to do, besides that, an extra blurb of some kind,
Very well.
letting people know about this, because we really want to encourage our the people of our beach to take part in elections and be interested in what's going on here and not feel like that they didn't know when the qualifying period was, because we are moving it up. So, and with that said, I would move to approve the ordinance.
I'll second.
But before we just finalize that vote, Mr. Town Attorney, could you, just for the record, let folks know what is the date for that qualifying period, hence, or post the change? I know the mayor said June, but if you could give the public just the exact date so they know the deadline for filing, I think that just it'd be nice to have that on the record for.
And as someone who's going through this, it doesn't mean start your work on June 13th. There's some,
Definitely not.
yeah, there's some work to be, and I think you can probably arrange to meet with our town clerk and she'll walk you through the process. I know there's a lot of people here who are very passionate about this town, a lot of quality people here, and we'd like to see you run.
Well, that's exactly right. And as long as we're discussing it, anybody that is interested in running for council would approach the clerk first to get all the information. And the clerk thereby would give the qualifying period to those potential candidates. Or if they filed the proper paperwork and became official candidates, then of course they would be notified of the qualifying dates. But anyhow, Mr. Attorney, you have that for the
Sure, for the residents,
Councilman?
the qualifying period will begin on Monday, June 13th, and it will end that Friday, June 17th.
And is that Friday close of business or Friday at noon?
I believe it's close of business, but if we can specify that in the advertisement.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Does this require a roll call?
Yes.
This is an ordinance on second reading,
It
sir.
does, okay. Councilman Allers.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hasselfros.
Aye.
Councilman Adderholt.
Aye.
Councilman Veach.
Aye.
Mayor Murphy, aye. The ordinance carries unanimously. The next item is ordinance 22-06, which, as noted earlier, has been rescheduled because of a problem with advertising. So we'll move on to the next item, which is item C, and this is ordinance 22-05, building footprint limits. This is the first reading and public hearing for proposed ordinance 22-05, an ordinance of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, amending Article 3, Division 3, Sections 34-638, quote, minimum setbacks, end quote, Table 34-3, dimensional regulations in conventional zoning districts, and Table 34-1, land uses assigned to use groups and subgroups of the town of Fort Myers Beach, that should be beach, right? Land Development Code, providing for codification, conflicts, Scrivener's errors, severability, and an effective date. This is open to the first public hearing, and we'll open it up right now. This is the first public hearing. Sarah.
Good morning, Sarah
Morning.
Probst with Community Development. During the public hearing for the consolidated lot ordinance, staff was asked to look at the options that other communities have used to limit the size of houses. Naples, so I looked at several communities, one in Florida, mostly not in Florida though. While there may be other communities that limit house sizes throughout Florida, I was unable to easily find any ordinances that help me understand that. So I'm going to show you a variety that are from around the nation, but one is in Naples. In Naples, Florida, they limit the house size in the rural estate district by percentage of lot size. At first, this sounded quite ideal, but then I created a graph, and that's in your staff report. And it was very complicated, and it was actually a little bit unfair because in some instances, depending on where the cutoff was for the lot size, you could end up with a larger lot and a smaller house than someone with a smaller lot. This seemed overly complicated for anyone to determine what size home they would be able to build. Palo Alto, California has a flat limit of 6,000 square feet. That's not the footprint, that's the total square footage of the house. Santa Monica, California limits lot coverage of a two-story house to 35% of the lot for the first story and 20% of the lot for the second story. This sounded like a good option, but what is an appropriate percentage and what size lot should this requirement come into effect were some of the questions that I had. Atherton, California limits houses to 18% of a lot for any lot over 1 acre. This may be a good option, but the town has very few lots over an acre, so we would have to rework that. Gunnison County, Colorado has a limit of 5,000 square feet for houses and 2,000 square feet for outbuildings that can be administratively approved. Any residences over this size must be approved by the county commission. So this isn't a hard and fast, you can't build anything over that. It's just an administrative approval. So Gunnison County's made the most sense to me. And so I worked on a proposed ordinance for you that was sort of based on this, but with different sizes. Staff is recommending an administrative approval limit of 7,500 square foot footprint. Any house with a footprint larger than 7,500 square feet can be approved through the special exception process. This would ensure that people have the ability to build large homes, but the council will have some say regarding how this is done. The language in your packet is the proposed language. If you like the proposal, this code change would require an amendment to the use table, Table 34-1, and Section 34-638D7. All of those are in your packet. At the March 22nd LPA hearing, the LPA discussed the topic and voted unanimously to support the proposal to go forward to council. At that hearing, they requested that staff reach out to single-family and two-family home builders. An email was sent out to the single-family and two-family home builders that are in our permitting system to notify them of the proposed change. The LPA also requested that additional plans be provided to you so that you have an idea of the size houses, what these would look like. I have provided 2 pictures of homes with plans in your packet. The wording has also changed a bit from the LPA's hearing to say horizontal area to match up with the code as it currently exists. After we sent it out to the single-family home builders, I received 2 questions from the same builder. I thought that they were very good questions, and I thought that it might be good to discuss them so that everybody has, I feel like this is a pretty common question. He asked, what size lot would a 7,500 square foot house be built on? And because our ordinance includes a 40% limit of building coverage, that would require an 18,750 square foot lot. I've provided some examples of how many lots that you would need to combine in different neighborhoods. So that's based on the average lot size within the platted subdivisions. And this is just to give you an idea that there aren't any subdivisions where this would be a single lot. It would be more than one lot to be combined to create a 7,500 square foot home or 7,500 square foot footprint home. The builder also asked what counts as an accessory building. The code defines a building as any structure, either temporary or permanent, having a roof intended to be impervious to weather and used or built for the shelter or enclosure of animals, persons, animals, chattels, or property of any kind. This definition shall include vehicles situated on private property and serving in any way the function of a building, but does not include screened enclosures not having a roof impervious to weather. So essentially, any structure that has a roof over it would be considered part of this building footprint, and that's currently how we count building coverage in our code. So it's the same measurement as the 40% essentially. Please note that if you're voting to move forward with this, you'll also have to vote to conduct the hearing at 9 a.m. because the state code requires either a meeting after 5 p.m. or that you vote a majority for a meeting that's not after 5 p.m. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
Questions for Sarah? Bill?
So this is strictly for the 7,500 foot maximum horizontal footprint?
Yes.
if I'm remembering correctly, we actually discussed this previously, but had to separate it from the other ordinance we did because of notice requirements. So we've discussed this previously. And so it's been on the table for some period of months, I would say maybe a year or more total from the time that we discussed, maybe not a year, but
The more specific language has been in discussion since at least February.
Sarah, just to be clear, so for folks that are watching, we've used the 7,500 square feet number, but that number would allow a two-story home of almost 14,000 square feet. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And then if somebody wanted to exceed that limit, you talk about they'd have to go through the special exception process. Would you walk through that process just for the folks who might be listening? Would that involve the LPA as well as the council?
I believe that's an LPA meeting and a town council meeting.
You and Jason have been involved in this now for a while. Based on your experience in Fort Myers Beach, how many homes or properties would, just in the last few years, would be impacted by this change? Is it a very small fringe? Is it a significant number? Just ballpark?
It's a very small fringe that I can think of that I've been involved in the review of. The Randy Lane home would have been impacted by this. It's about 10,000 square feet, the footprint. From what I can tell, that's based on their site survey and a measurement that I took because they didn't provide exactly that information on the plan. They weren't required to. So it looks like the Randy Lane home would have, and I can't think of another one. No, the one on Seminole wouldn't. It's smaller than that.
So you and Jason have been involved in this for now 3 or 4 years now, and you can only think of one home that this would impact?
And I'm not saying. that
I'm
there
not
aren't
holding you to that, but
others.
just the fact that you could only think of one off the top of your head, I just think that helps us better understand the impact of this particular change.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And just to segue to that, Jim, I believe I may have been the person who originally asked the question about, did we have any outside limits? And I did that not because I saw it as a current problem, but as a future problem. One of the things we tend not to do here is we don't get ahead of the curve. And I saw the houses getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and people complaining to me about that. So when I brought it up, it was not because I thought it was a current problem, but I expected it to be a future problem.
That's helpful. I think it was helpful for Sarah to qualify the impact of this currently, and I think your point is well taken.
Anyone else?
Sarah, I got a question. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, the gentleman from Woodland Homes that was speaking about this. He said he was told by staff that the buildings that they currently have in process now would not be allowed to move forward, or paraphrasing a little bit as to what he said. I'd like to know who told him that.
Just for the record, Jason Green, Community Development. I think his reference was to the ordinance change that occurred with the percentage of the side setbacks, not to this change. So his comment was about the stuff that has been in place and got adopted in February.
So, just since we're talking about it,
Sure.
how is it? So is he pretty much out of luck with his clients? with
No.
that?
So just to be clear, when the council discussed this item, you did not, with all due respect, did not draw a clear line in the sand to who is in progress at some step should be let through the gate and who shouldn't be. And when I say shouldn't be, all that means is they have to come before you and make their case individually.
Is this as a special exception?
Yes. And I believe that's correct, yes.
It would be a variance process.
Variance.
To the
A
setbacks.
variance.
correct.
All right, so it would be LPA in 2 hearings instead of a special exception is LPA in 1 hearing. The staff met and we did not advertise it, but we picked a particular threshold that if you cross that threshold, we believe that you far enough along for us to approve you administratively, that particular house administratively, because you're at the point of no return, without having to basically redo everything. And for those people who are at that place, we would have and will give them an administrative approval. For the ones who don't, can come before you and seek to be included under the old regulation if they so wish.
What is that threshold? Is
And,
it trusses ordered or trusses
well,
engineered or?
Well, you know, we were careful not to sort of tell people the answer to the question, but since you brought it up, Mr. Mayor, we want to be sure that, that we believe that when the truss work was ordered, designed, engineered and designed, that, you know, at that point, the four walls aren't moving. So we kind of looked at it that way. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other extenuating circumstances that can't go through a public process to be reviewed and considered. You all can, you know, widen the lane if you wish to, widen the guardrails today or any other public meeting if you so wish to. We're just trying to be fair about to all the builders, and also be fair to the neighbors who, and according to my notes, have been aware this has been an issue in front of council since September of 2021. So, so give them an opportunity to, you know, be here at a hearing and state their opinions about a particular project. So I guess I answered the town manager's item now, but.
Did. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Jason. Okay, we'll bring it back to the council. Is there a motion to move this forward to the second reading? Oh,
I'll move.
excuse me, public comment, right? Did we have public comment? Did I?
No, you need to.
Is there anyone from the public that wishes to address this? Seeing none, we'll close that, and now we'll bring it back to the council. Vice Mayor.
Actually, before I make my motion, I just thought of another question for Sarah. You mentioned that we need to approve that the hearing be at 9 a.m. Do I need to make that part of my motion?
Separate motion?
I think it can be a separate motion.
Okay.
Vice Mayor,
Yeah.
before you move forward, I'll note that for it to be in the AM, you're going to need 4 votes.
Okay. But do you want me to make it a separate motion legally, or can I make it as part of the motion setting it for hearing? Because you actually mentioned the hearing date as part of the motion.
It's, well, the hearing date's already advertised for the AM,
Right.
so it'd probably be, so I don't think you need to move to keep it in the AM, but you do need to move if you want to change it.
Right now, it presupposes it'll be in the morning, Madam Vice Mayor. So unless we don't have 4 affirmative votes, it doesn't become an issue.
Oh, okay.
We've always included in the one motion. So
Okay.
I've included the 9 a.m., so it's part of your motion.
It's
so-
part of the motion
so we
now.
don't
I don't
forget
have
it.
to, I don't have to say any extra words.
I've
Okay.
been doing it that way so that we don't.
Okay, I would move to schedule for second reading and final adoption ordinance 22-05 on April 18th at 9 a.m.
Is there a
I'll,
sec-
I'll second.
And second it. Discussion? Objection? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, that goes to second hearing. All right, the next item is ordinance 22-09 Pwvl/PAL. This is the first reading and public hearing for proposed ordinance 22-09, an ordinance of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, amending chapter 27, quote, personal watercraft and parasailing, end quote, section 27-52, personal watercraft vendor license and parasailing activity license applications and regulatory fees. Section 27-53, personal watercraft vendor license and parasailing activity license renewals of the Code of Ordinances, Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, to provide a limited exemption to the cap on the number of annual licenses, providing that personal watercraft vendor licenses and parasailing activity license that are not annually renewed or are inactive for 1 year or more shall revert back to the town, providing for codification, conflicts, scrivener's errors, severability, and an effective date. We'll open the public hearing. Yes, sir.
Before you do that, I think we need a roll call vote of the last motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we'll go back to, I just remember what I just read. We'll go back to ordinance 22-05. You don't need the vice mayor to restate the motion, do you? So we'll have a roll call on that motion.
Aye.
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 The motion carries unanimously for 22-05. Okay, back to ordinance 22-09, which is the first reading and public hearing for proposed ordinance 22-09. It's, we'll open it up to, for a public hearing. So, Mr. Attorney, this has been advertised as
First hearing.
it's the first hearing. Okay, first hearing,
Ms.
first reading, of course.
And John Herron is appearing by Zoom. I think he
Is he?
voting, so
Okay.
just so you're aware.
All right. Well, where do we want to go? To the public first here? Does anybody want to, from the staff, chime in on this, or?
Well, I just want to mention that if you recall that I believe the council tasked the town attorney to develop some language for your consideration, which he has done. It's my understanding that at least one counselor may have some additional or replacement language to discuss. And of course, I believe there's several current people who are providing the service here on the island probably will wish to opine, as the town has had a max number of licenses for these activities, and this potentially could change that paradigm.
Okay,
Mr.
well,
Mayor?
yes, sir.
If we could, since the town attorney has joined us via phone, could we have the town attorney walk us through what the intent of the language that he crafted is, and have him sort of walk us through it before we proceed?
Yeah, we could do that, and then I'd like to hear from Councilman Veach on his proposed language, and then we'll open it up.
Is that fine, or did you want to go first, Counselor Veach?
No, we can't. I'm sure the Jen will be involved through
Okay.
numerous
very good.
steps of the process.
Are you with us, Attorney Herron?
Yes, I am. Can you all hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
I appreciate you all allowing me to, under the circumstances, to appear by Zoom. It was a very late evening for me.
We're getting double billed by
None-
your firm this morning, John?
I'm sorry?
Are we getting double billed by your firm this morning?
This is all in the retainers.
Okay, we're still on.
In any event, I do want to mention one procedural issue. And after we finish this item, I do believe you all have to take back up the prior ordinance because there was not a roll call vote.
We went back and did it. We did go back.
And I don't know if you already did that, but
We did.
So anyway, with regard to this particular ordinance, the direction that I was given by the town council was to acknowledge and recognize that there are a number of development projects, prior and current projects that were approved via the CPD or the Commercial Plan Development rezoning process, where these waterborne activities were specifically listed as permitted uses. So the intent and what is before you is language that would recognize those developments that have those CPDs, that have these types of uses specifically listed as permitted uses, however they're listed. Okay, I want to make it clear, however they're listed, that they would have to comply with whatever those CPD regulations are, unless the holder of that CPD or the property owner elects at some point in the future to potentially amend the CPD to modify that language, which is perfectly legal, perfectly authorized under the code, as long as the appropriate procedures and the appropriate hearings are conducted. So with that said, what you have before you is a very a short ordinance, frankly, that recognizes the developments that potentially have CPDs as being exempt from the existing cap on the number of licenses that have been issued. Also, there's some language in there at your direction that you asked us to write that says that if any of these licenses that may be on inactive status would come back to the town if they are in inactive status for 1 year or more. Also, there's some language that's been added that would allow the town council to set the fees for the various licensing procedures if so desired by resolution. It is up to you all whether or not you find the language acceptable, and we're here to do whatever you ask us to do. There was some discussion at the LPA level as to the number of these CPDs. I'm aware of 3, but I would certainly defer to staff to, since they would have better idea of what those are. And then, to the extent that Councilmember Veach has distributed some additional language, we certainly can discuss and talk about those. I think it's going a little bit further in the way of trying to provide some clarity as to what is required of operators in the form of some of the business regulations. Here to answer any questions you all may have and take direction from you as to how you would like us to potentially modify the ordinance as it's currently written and presented to you.
Okay, very good. So with the council's approval, I think what I'd like to do here is we'll use John's language as the basis here for what we're may or may not be trying to do, and then we'll hear from Councilman Veach's additions, and then we'll see if the two can be meshed, and then we'll also hear from the public as to their concerns, and we'll decide whether we go on from there. So Councilman Veach, we'll turn it over to you.
And I'll just say that I did put John's changes in this document. I have little notes after every phrase, and it's either JH or a BV. Okay, I talked with staff, and I've gone through this pretty extensively. A couple things just for clarifications. In the definitions, there's a place in here where it's used quite a bit as a land-based site. Now, according to staff, that means essentially a place you can get mail. It's attached to a building. It's not a minor structure on the sand. It's an actual, it's in a what they call a major structure. But it's not really defined in the ordinance anywhere. So I think for clarity, that'd be one thing that's worth to define. The other thing is I came up with the term, and certainly the attorneys had come up with a better term as appropriate, is that legal operations, meaning with John's language, we provided 2 mechanisms where people could be running these operations. One is by the original license, and one is by qualification by the CPD. So I just wanted to define a term that meant the total number of operations so that it allowed us to use that as a cap going forward when deciding whether we're going to reissue licenses. Okay. And then flipping through a little bit, I've also talked about there's certainly some instances where the operators are doing things that, from my understanding, is not really allowed here. Like one is 15 feet from the wet sand line to where the hut is. I've certainly seen cases in one specific area where that's usually not followed, where if it was a high tide, you had to walk around behind the booths. But one operation that I saw that I don't think every operator does, but it seems like there is an operational model where they put the jet skis in every time someone rents them and pulls them out again when they're done. And this can create, to me, a really unsafe condition where you have heavy machinery that is frequently going across the wet sand line where a lot of people are walking or riding bikes or whatever. So I try to put something in here at this item 21, which is operators must minimize conflict with the public's use of the wet sand by limiting the movement of Pwvl launching equipment across the littoral zone by loading the Pwvls intended for the day's use before the day's business and removing them at the end of the day's business. Just for consideration, because that's certainly one thing that I saw that I think we can improve safety.
Counselor Veach, I'm just professing my ignorance here. What is the littoral zone?
That's the area where the wet sand essentially. It's the area that's both water and dry, depending on.
That's a term of art?
That is a scientific term.
Thank you.
I don't know if that's in the definitions, maybe because it's common enough. Yeah, it's in.
It is in the definition.
Yeah, it is in the definitions as well.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll hear from the
Yes.
cons.
And we'll go through everything so the public comment understands, what we're saying. There's one here that it's just an errant from Word, but the next one would go to, we're talking about permits and when the permits are reissued. So the cap on licenses, which is 2752D. And it is, the current language is the town manager should issue no more than 11 Pwvl licenses outstanding at any point in time. And this is John's language where he said, except that a holder of an unexpired CPD development order listing personal watercraft as activity as permitted, as is used, is exempt from the cap. So that would say they're not really a license. And that's where the term would come in to say that the number of cap would be the number of cap on. And it comes up later, where the cap is on the number of operations. So if a license becomes available and someone is also exercising a CPD path, then that license would not be available to be transferred. Does that make sense?
Say it again one more time.
Okay, we mentioned here that there's a cap on licenses, right? Now, there's two ways for someone to have an operation, by the CPD or by the license. And the idea is to just turn that so that, and maybe that isn't very clear here in John's language, but that the cap is on the number of operations now. It's not on the number of licenses.
Okay.
The other thing I added is that it seems like the application process, I thought it could use some more refining. And one is that if someone has outstanding fines or violations, that they've got to clarify, they got to clear those up before they're allowed to renew their license. And then John's language about the fees. And then John also in section C, he mentioned that when one's of no further use, then it should revert to the town. And then John's terms about, he read these earlier for up to 1 year. And they revert to the town. So this is all the original John's language. Now the transferability in 2755, I thought there was room there to have a pathway to try to change some of the nature of these licenses that is fairer for the landowners and doesn't create a shock to the current license holders. The idea is that when people are transferring, that there's certain, especially transferring to a new owner, that there are some restrictions on when that can be done. Now, one suggestion was made to me, just say that, okay, when you have a license, you can't transfer it to another owner. They're just non-transferable. There has been instances recently, I've heard, where licenses have been transferred and the owner was never even made aware, let alone in a part of the process to approve who was operating on their land. I've also, in some of the emails, like you've probably heard from some people who are concerned about this, the implication they felt that they had the right to operate on someone else's land by holding that license. Now, I don't know what the agreements are between the landowners and the licensees, but certainly whatever that relationship is dictated by that agreement between them. And no license allows you to operate in any one particular place. So in this section, and this is probably where most of the meat of the changes that I think I made are, is that using this transferability to limit proliferation, which is a concern I know with the vice mayor and I think many of us, just not So this doesn't just create more clutter on our beach. Now, one way I would say is that the limitation of transfer to a new owner, if we don't want to limit, if we don't want to say, go as far as say that the licenses are not transferable to a new owner, then we can say that they're only allowable to be transferred to a new owner if the number of operations are below the cap for either the PALs or the Pwvls. And the other is to add something saying that the applicant must have written approval of the property owner if they're going to use that license on that property, to make sure that property owner is in the loop in what's operating on their land. And then transferability to a new location, I just changed the licenses with legal operations to, like I said earlier, to mean that as a way to try to curb proliferation.
Good.
Any comments?
That's my question. Any comments? No
I guess
comments.
I
Okay.
would ask John, do you see any unforeseen problems with any of Bill's language?
No, not necessarily. Obviously, if the consensus of or the direction of the council is to move forward with one or all of Councilmember Beach's suggestions, we certainly will format them and clean up some of the language and get with him to make sure that what comes back to you on second reading is consistent with what he envisions and what you all envision. But off the top of my head, having communicated with him about this and looked at his draft that he circulated, there's nothing there that jumps out that at first blush would have any significant issues or potential unintended consequences. I think that the biggest issue that is whether or not you all as a body want to limit the transferability of these licenses, and which is one of the suggestions that Mr. Veach has mentioned. That certainly would require us to take a closer look at that language and craft it carefully to minimize any potential issues there.
John, I don't have the original ordinance in front of me, but I think, can we get a copy of at least this section of how it's written now compared to what?
It's in the notebook.
Well, not the whole thing, not all of it. So especially this specific section, 2755, because I believe number 5 you've got here, I think that sentence or something very close to it is already in the current ordinance.
I started with the original ordinance and made the changes. So every change made to the ordinance should show up here as either being strike through or underlined.
It's all there.
Well, so that's what I'm kind of, number 5 is the one I'm looking at specifically. Number 5 under 27-55.
I mean, A5?
Oh, yeah, A5, sorry.
Yeah, that did not exist.
I thought I read it somewhere.
Commissioner Allers, that is correct. The provision that says applicant must present written approval.
Yes. Isn't that pretty much?
Yeah, that would be new language.
Everything underlined is new.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion before I open it up? Okay, we're going to open it up to the public for public comment. Does anybody wish to speak to this? Come on up.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Sharon Faircloth, for the record, owner of Holiday Water Sports Fort Myers Beach with my husband, Kevin. Been in the water sports business 30 years on the beach. And I wish I could have seen all of this language prior to this meeting. I looked and I didn't see any of what you're proposing. So I have a lot of thoughts, but I haven't had enough time to really think about, implications, because sometimes small language changes down the road make huge, differences. But one thing I did want to point out, I have other notes that I was going to say before I knew about all the new language. But in the application process, it's not listed in the ordinance right now that you have to have specific permission from a property owner. But if you look then at our actual application that we have to fill out, that's where it is. That's where it says you have to have a letter from the property owner. You have to get it signed every year that says the property owner still wants your business on their property. Contracts with property owners, I think, are very common. And so if you have a contract with a property owner, part of that contract is that they're agreeing to help you get your Pwvl, and that's kind of, part of what goes on. So I just wanted you to know that that is in the process, but you're right, it's not specifically listed in the ordinance that you have to show permission or something. So I just wanted to let you know that. But having said that, I'm just going to go back to my original statements real quick because I didn't have a chance to hear all of your changes. So I'm just going back to, I had emailed all of you already. I think you kind of have the gist of what I'm going to, talk about. But in the prior meeting, you had mentioned, Mr. Adderholt or Councilman Adderholt, that the elephant in the room, Mr. Torgerson wanting to get in the water sports business. So I was just going to speak to that again. That is true. He does want to get in the water sports business. And all of us also at a certain point in our life wanted to get in the water sports business. So all the vendors currently who wanted to get into this business, who wanted to gain entry into this industry, had to go through a process. And the process we all had to go through to either start a business or to expand within our industry, which is capped for a reason, which is safety. The way all of the vendors have had to do so is through purchase of a license from another vendor. And I guess my feelings are Tom Torgerson now wants to be a water sports vendor. And we welcome new vendors as long as someone's there to uphold the safety standards and be a good vendor for all of our beach residents and guests. I don't think anyone is against, particularly Margaritaville or Tom Torgerson, entering into this industry at all. It's just simply that the process that we've all had to go through seems to be being changed for one individual. And I don't think that's fair. I think that at the LPA meeting, if you all had a chance to watch the comments at the end of the LPA meeting, both of the vendors that are currently on his property stated that they would be wanting to talk to him and transfer their licenses to him. How they do that is obviously a private matter, not something that maybe the government needs to be involved in. So at the end of the day, my opinion, the cap was set there for safety. I hope you won't start raising the cap because I do think that having started here in the 90s and seeing what it's like when there are way too many vendors, it's dangerous. That's why the cap was put in place. And I just hope that this council will do the right thing and uphold the cap is what I'm asking. But again, having not had a chance to understand all the new language you're proposing, I don't know if that is also your goal. I listened carefully, but I would almost have to be able to read it if that's, if we're given the opportunity to do so. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon. And just for
proceed-
clarification, we ourselves, Sharon, did not get this new language till, formally till this morning. And then I don't know if we even got it via email earlier. So we're going to have to digest this ourselves. And you'll also have that opportunity in the next few weeks before any potential second reading. So did you want to add something to that, Bill?
Yeah, and this is just the way the procedure works, because I really can't communicate with anybody on the board through this, but I did bother John quite a bit. Maybe the reason why he's afraid to come today. And staff and find out what's going on. And I just have to comment that I've never heard, the Zoom calls coming so clearly with this new system. That's it.
Very good. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this matter?
Well, I guess I have some concerns on,
Still public comment.
oh, I'm sorry. I thought since Bill was talking, we were into.
Well, he kind of went off the reservation. Anyone else? Yes, yes, sir.
Hi, for the record, Dave Nussbaum. I have no dog in this fight. I have no water sports. Island Winds knows several of the vendors because some of them do cabanas on our beach. We've had some of them in the past. I just want to caution the board. Government should not be choosing winners and losers. You have people that have dedicated their life to build a business. This is a great American dream. I want to build a business. I want to make it prosper. I want to be safe. I want to follow the government regulations, but it's the great American dream. That's capitalism at its finest. And government should not impose restrictions as far as transferring license or transferability that picks winners and losers or takes away the benefits of the fruits of labor of individuals. And that's the only caution I want to give you as you read the new revisions and everything else. And as I said, I have no dog in this fight, but sitting here and listening to it, I just wanted to make that point to the council. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. You've got enough dogs and enough fights going here. You don't need another one. Anyone else? No. Yes, Jennifer.
This is, in my opinion,
Identify yourself, please.
Jennifer Rusk with Marine Resource Task Force and resident of the beach full-time. I really feel as though when I speak with people during the pop-ups, I get the feeling like a lot of people are not aware of some of our town ordinances, state laws, and federal laws. It's important, and those laws are in place to protect this barrier island. The foundation of this island is a healthy environment. Then we can build up. If we have a healthy environment, healthy water, healthy wildlife, then we're going to be prosperous. Our businesses will be prosperous. So we always need to remind ourselves, what's the end goal? The end goal is for everyone to have a healthy business, a healthy environment, healthy wildlife, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Chris.
Hey, good morning. Chris Weber, Mid-Island Water Sports. I just wanted to address Bill's new part of it. One of the things you said was that it would go to 12 and then it would have to go back below the cap for any of the other licenses to be transferable. So that puts all the businesses that are currently in business not being allowed to sell. Is that correct?
As long as the way the wording isn't here, and this is not something we've really discussed, but is that okay to talk to him? Yeah. Is that, the transferal, it wouldn't be transferable to a new owner if the total number of operations are above that cap.
Okay, so if you add a CPD or 3 CPDs, all the people that are in business today, until it got below 11, we are unable to transfer our business to anyone else.
If that situation would happen with all the CPDs that we
Or
think
even
are
just
there,
the one stays. If it stays at 12 for 20 years.
until one license becomes available and that is not renewed under one of the other provisions we talked about, when one is left vacant for a year, then that would bring it below the cap.
So, in your writing right now, if it never went below the cap of 12, or you're going to put it at 12 with the CPDs, could be at 13, could be at 14. Okay, so what in your writing, it says that if it, until it gets back below 11, none of the current vendors can sell.
That's the way this would work.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment and bring it back to the council. Council, comments?
I have a couple questions for Daphne, since I see you're sitting there. If she could so grace me with a few questions.
Daphne Saunders, Community Services Administrator. What can I do for you?
The way that the ordinance is currently written, how many of the vendors currently legally follow you say, the separation distance?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of the vendors that are grandfathered in right now. So that 500 feet between each vendor is not currently being, complied with, but it's because of the grandfathered in permits.
And under the way it's currently written, if a business was to change hands and the rules are not followed that are currently written, would that grandfather status be lost then?
It is not, that is not specified in the code right now.
And how many jet skis are allowed per vendor, per license to be operated?
8.
And do currently all of them follow the 8? Do we have any violators or?
I can't answer that. I would say offhand, there are a lot of violations that are happening right now. Not to any specific thing, but within this ordinance as it is written. So I've never gone out on the beach and said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there are within the cap of 11 and the cap of 7, there are multiple business owners. So you have one business owner that may have 2 or 3 licenses within that cap.
Maybe this next question is for John, going back to the transfer, since we talked about it already. Recently, Bill brought it up, transferred from one owner to another owner. John, is there anything in our current code that allows that? I guess if the name stays the same and it changes, ownership changes, but the name changes the same, do they still have to go through reapplying at the town or updating the application at the town?
I actually would defer for a more full answer to that to Daphne, but I believe so. We have had a couple of situations where the business and the business name have been sold from one principal to another. And my understanding is under the regulations that we currently have, they're supposed to. I'm not saying it happens all the time, but they're supposed to notify the town of that transfer, because the application form has a place for the owner of the business to fill out and to provide that information. But I believe that Ms. Saunders would probably maybe add some additional information or a more complete response than I can.
The transferability, so the way I interpreted the code when I first got here was that it cannot be transferred unless it is in the same business name. I denied a transfer a couple of years ago, and it was brought back to the council as an administrative appeal, because the way I interpreted the code was that a business can only transfer if it is the business itself doing the transfer. I denied a transfer of a license due to that. I had an administrative appeal against that decision, and council ruled that it could transfer the license to a different name. So there's that part. As far as the transferability of any recent transfers, we have gotten no new applications, but the code says we're supposed to, regarding any transferability or transfers of licenses, with no new updates, no new business tax receipts, no new certificates of insurance. When I watched the LPA, that was the first I heard of some of the transfers of permits.
So, Council Ehlers, your code as written today has certain requirements of the people providing this service. And if it transfers, we need to make sure that those requirements are still being met by the new transferee or recipient. So that the ones that don't come before us should come before us. if that's your question, for review because they have to meet the conditions set in the code.
Well,
Can't just be a separate business transaction without the town. I guess that's my point.
And under the current code, and just asking so the public is aware, are there any repercussions for not doing it?
Well, there should be, but I don't know that there have been.
Maybe that was a question more for John. Legally, is there anything the town can, if they wanted to, do if this was the case?
Certainly, it's within, like any ordinance, like any regulation, this is up to the town council. If it believes that changes are needed and warranted, then this is the process in which we engage in to do so. And so if you all wish further clarification of that aspect of the regulations, then we certainly can look into it. I think that it's fair to say that in the original ordinance that I drafted that was presented to the LPA and actually before that was discussed at the M&P meeting from last month, was abbreviated in form, designed to accomplish the objective that you all directed me to do, which was to recognize these developments with the CDPs that had these uses. But if the council wishes to look at other aspects of this regulation, we certainly can do that. And as I said at the beginning of during my initial presentation, as staff, I'm here to take direction from the council and modify the ordinances however you all direct me and deem fit, obviously within the confines of what is and isn't legal.
Anything else, Councilman?
I do, but I'll wait to let somebody else speak for a little bit.
Well, there may not be anybody else. Anybody else?
Yes.
Oh, Vice Mayor.
I expressed my concerns about this discussion previously. As Mr. Hattergold indicated, this was brought about due to concerns of Mr. Torgerson. I'll say on the record, I like Mr. Torgerson, I like his development, but I think you're trying to fix something that doesn't need to be fixed here. He has options open to him, more than one option open to him. And now it appears that, from my understanding, is that this is worse than I originally contemplated. My understanding was we were going to add one additional license. Now I'm hearing that with the language John has come up with the CPD development order, there's potentially 3 or maybe more. He is not definitive when he says that number. I'm against expanding our cap. I'm concerned about this when he says 3 and he's not being definitive in his answer. I believe the question was asked of him at the LPA, and so we still don't have an answer to that question. I'm not against some of the ideas that Bill has come up with to fix this if you go down that road, but my inclination is I think you're opening a can of worms here that you're going to be sorry you opened.
Okay. Anyone else? Councilman.
Well, if this is our chance to opine, I'll do so. I think it's helpful to the vendors to sort of put yourself in our spot and to sort of have a better sense of why we're doing what we're doing, or what we're struggling to do what we're doing. Is it was brought to our attention a few months ago that during the negotiations for TPI, the liaison for the council, who was our former mayor, Anita Saracita, was involved in numerous meetings along with the developer and a litany of other people, where a commitment was made to TPI that they would be able to self-perform and control their destiny on their property with respect to this area. Now, I think we all can agree now, hindsight being 2020, I mean, it was clear that in the CPD that they were given authority to do that, but the license piece was not addressed, and certainly would have been helpful to have that part codified in the agreement. It wasn't. But at the same time, I trust the people involved, and I believe a commitment was made, and I'm maybe old school, but I think I'm a big fan of keeping your word, particularly to a developer. I mean, we're analyzing this as if we're in some kind of a vacuum, and this is a developer who lives on our island. I mean, I can just having been involved in a litany of economic development projects in Indiana, to have a developer who lives in your own community is pretty unusual. It's not some consortium in China that's off in a distant land or doesn't care about our local community. Somebody who lives here, his family's involved in the community. They're involved in charitable work in the island. They're involved and live in the day-to-day activities of our island. They've committed $200 million, a $200 million infusion of capital into a distressed area of our downtown area. They're creating jobs and enhancing the property tax base of our island. I mean, to play gotcha with a developer who we're gonna have a relationship with over the coming decades seems odd to me, given that a commitment was made by people I think we all know and respect to try to help them through this process. And I love the conversations today about free enterprise and capitalism and private sector. I love that, but it seems like we're advocating that all within the confines of a government a structured monopoly, which seems odd. And so these are all unique situations. It's a very one-off dynamic, I think, as we try to solve this problem. Nobody's trying to hurt anybody. Nobody's trying to punish the vendors. We're trying to fix a challenge here that's been brought to our attention so the town can keep its word to an entity that's trying to improve our community. To me, it's that simple. We're trying to do it in a way that I think the vendors have done an excellent job of describing how proliferation of these licenses could be harmful to the public safety aspect of it. So we're trying to fix a problem here and say, oh, well, you should just go ahead and buy a license or do it like we did it. Well, this is a pretty unique situation. And obviously, if you talk to the developer and he said this publicly, some of the prices he's being quoted in this sort of unique monopoly situation are pretty extreme. And I'm not sure that that's right, to force a developer into a situation where, in a monopoly situation where they've got to, I won't use the term, but it puts them in a difficult spot knowing that they really want to perform this service and have it be part of their broader operation. So the prices that the developer's been offered have been, to me, shocking and a little bit exploitive, to say the least. And it's not by any of the vendors in this room, I'm sure, but I'm just saying it's a challenge and we're trying to fix the challenge. So if you could put yourself in our shoes, trying to fix the problem without doing any external damage or minimizing it as best we can, I think Councilor Veach's attempts to try to limit this are excellent. I'd like some more time to study him, but I think certainly his intent is good. And that's why we're here today. So I support the language that the town attorney has put forth. I support Councilor Veach's amendments. And I just want the vendors to understand we're trying to address a challenge here in a way that we're just doing the best we can under the circumstances. And I think it's so important that we as a town keep our word. That's all I have. Thank you.
Could I ask a polite question of Mr. Adderhold?
Please.
One of the things I expressed was my concern that Mr. Herron indicates that this may be an expansion of more than 1, 3, and potentially more. Do you have any inclination to modify that language so it's just 1 that we're adding to the cap?
Well, that's a fair point, Vice Mayor. And as I understand it from the town attorney, that in order to limit it to 1, it exposes the town to potential legal challenges, and that the way the town attorney has done this, it minimizes those opportunities for legal challenge. I would defer to the town attorney to extrapolate on that because again, I'm not an attorney, but that's what I've been informed. But it's certainly a fair question.
John?
Vice Mayor Hasselfrost, if I may.
Please.
Go right ahead.
So, when tasked with drafting this ordinance, I as well as with any ordinance, I try to, on behalf of the town and the community, I try and separate out sometimes what I would call motivations or the issues sometimes, and try and do put before you all an ordinance that is hopefully easy to interpret, easy to apply, and most importantly, apply equally to all similarly situated property owners, or who may come within the four corners of that regulation or that ordinance. So, to just singularly say we're going to increase the cap by 1 and give it to property owner X raises issues of equal protection and equal application. And so what the ordinance that I drafted, although may have in the perspective or view of some, the unintended consequence of potentially increasing indirectly the cap, it's also intended to make sure that we are not affecting negatively the other similarly situated property owners in similar situations to, as has been discussed, TPI, Margaritaville, and others. And I know of at least one situation where a developer or a property owner has a similar provision in their CPD, but in conversations with staff, it's my understanding that that particular hotel owner has made it very clear that they do not intend to self-operate, that they don't want to self-operate. So while there may be more than one that would fall within the four corners of what has been drafted, the actual effect on the number of operations may be very minimal, and that's at least at this point, the expectation. As to the question that was asked of how many of these are out there, I have had conversations with staff since the genesis of this ordinance about trying to determine that number. And I don't know if they've finished their review of prior CPDs or have a better idea. But as I mentioned, I think there's at least 3 that I'm aware of, and 2 of which of those 3, the feedback from the holders of those CPDs is that they don't intend on doing self-operations.
That's an oral representation that they don't have to stick with down the road.
That is potentially correct. And again, some of it also depends upon the specific language in the CPD. It's been widely mentioned at the LPA and that, for example, at least one of these CPD approvals says subject to compliance with Chapter 27. So that analysis would have to take place to determine whether or not any particular holder of a CPD that has this as listed as a permitted use, if it has that language in that CPD, to make sure that they otherwise meet the requirements of Chapter 27.
I think this points out, though, exactly what I've been trying to say, and that is we're trying to fix this for one person. But in order to fix this for one person, we have to look like we're not fixing it for just one person. And then we open the cap even higher. John, I understand what it is you're saying, that why you have to do this. But this just shows you when you're trying to fix something for one person, then it forces you into these gyrations where to look like you're not showing favoritism, it then damages us even further by having to open the cap even higher.
I would categorically reject that this is all window dressing to try to look like we're not favoring one person. Certainly I heard about this from John or from Tom, like everybody else did, but I'll tell you that I looked into it more, and the concerns I had were more about private property rights than about Tom Torgenson. And the idea that this is some example of the free market at work, like Councilman Adderholt said, when the town adopted this ordinance and put the cap on it, people, and gave people a license, we picked winners and losers at that time. This is a way, what I'm really trying to do, and what a lot of these gyrations through this, these changes to this ordinance is to make it so that there's not such shock. You don't like suddenly change the licensing to allow it to originate from the private property, but that we start transitioning to where the private property owners have rights to what happens on their land.
I don't disagree with that, Bill. What I'm having trouble with is this portion here on page 85.
The numbers.
Yes.
Okay, Councilman, you want to come back?
Yeah, I kind of want to hash out a few things. I agree with some of everything that someone said, you guys have said, and I disagree with some. I don't think that this change, I think this ordinance, when it went into effect, created some consequences that weren't foreseen, and we're dealing with it now. So I think it's bigger than one property. Sure, maybe the one property is the reason that this came up. But I think in the give and take and the talk that's been going back and forth, it's created, at least, I mean, I've learned more in the last 2 months about parasailing watercraft business than I ever thought I would know. But
Good for you.
yeah, I agree with Bill in that. I think, it's very difficult for us because anyone that knows me knows I'm very much about small business, but I'm about all business, not just small business. So we have to be very careful on how we work, not just specifically for one group, but the entire group. I think, if everybody works together, they can succeed. And this, I think, handcuffs unwillingly or unknowingly when it was put in place. I wasn't there. I've spoke with a few people that have know a lot about this, and I think the LPA did a really good job of hashing out some of the questions and the misinformation that's out there about who owns the licenses and how they're issued, and the reason it's been going the way it's been going for 25 years and successfully operated safely, which is very important to me as well. But I think we do owe it to we do owe it to the businesses that have invested and bought property. I wouldn't want to tell any one of my colleagues or anyone out here who they specifically had to use as a plumber at their house. And I think the way that this is written currently is exactly how it is some people have 4, 5, 6 licenses, however many they have. They're stacking licenses as opposed to having 12 different or 7 different vendors. But I think there's a way to do it. I think we're going down the right path. I think there still needs to be some discussion about some of the changes, Bill, that you put in there. I would also like to know from the town attorney if he can opine on this, about these meetings that were had. We all know that there was no discussion about it publicly, but it's been publicized that there's been reassurances that were given to them that this wouldn't be an issue. And I'm just wondering if that's the case, if you were in on any of those meetings, or if John was, or anyone from the staff was in on these meetings and can recall if those assurances were really given in this case.
I can only speak, Commissioner, Councilmember Allers, to myself. I've had no such meetings or participated in any such meetings.
Anyone else?
I could definitely say that without any equivocation that no commitment was made.
All right. Anyone else?
I still would also.
No, your time is done. Sorry.
Hmm.
The council. Okay, well, we're going to bring it back now. Is there a motion to move this forward to a second hearing? Otherwise, or some other motion in the alternative?
I would move to move this on to a second hearing with attorney vetted edits based on what I put, knowing that this allows us time for us and the public to digest what this is, and that there's no commitment to approval when you go to a second.
So that's and clarify that as to a second reading and a public hearing scheduled for April 18th, 2022 at 9 a.m. and possible final adoption.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and second. Discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, in the LPA hearing, which I did watch, they raised a lot of questions. They did ask for some specific data to be presented to us that we haven't been presented with yet. in speaking with at least one member of the staff, they're working on it. There's a lot of things to go through. I would really hope that by the time we have this second reading, that we can have a better idea of how many CPDs are actually out there to be able to make a more educated decision.
Yes, I agree. And any
Well,
other?
let's just say this for now. Right now, there's 3 that have been identified, and that it requires us looking through every single individual file. It's not, sort of a sort on a database. So we will continue to do that, but that's the information we have as of today. Is that correct, Daphne? So right now it's 3. And I believe, as Mr. Herron said, that several of the people who are on that list have indicated to us they're not interested in self-performing today, as alluded to by the Vice Mayor.
Okay. And I'd also just add that as soon as we get any additional information coming forward, to disseminate it as quickly as possible, so any interested party has a chance to look at it prior to this upcoming hearing. Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? Yeah, it was seconded by Councilman Adderhold.
Roll call, Mayor.
Okay, we'll have a roll call. We'll start, Councilman Veach.
Aye.
Councilman Adderhold.
Aye.
Vice Mayor.
Nay.
Councilman.
Aye.
Mayor. Aye. The motion carries 4-1 with the Vice Mayor dissenting. Okay.
Mayor, if I can make one last comment before we move on, there's discussion that, yes, we're going to try and get all this information to you prior to the next meeting, and certainly that is our intent. But I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say that you all can take, or this council can take, as long or as short a period of time as it feels it needs in order to get this right in your eyes, and to vet all these issues. So although the second hearing has been scheduled and has been advertised, and certainly will move forward, if for whatever reason at the end of that process, that hearing on that second reading, if you all want additional time, you certainly have within your power the right to continue that public hearing to date and time certain, and continue the vetting process. So, I just want to make sure that you all are mindful of that. To take as much or as little time as you all feel is necessary to address, an important issue for the council and for the community.
Very good. Thank you for bringing that up. That's good to remember that always.
And I believe, Amy, now, if anybody wants a copy of these notes, that's available from you. So if you want to look at these and have the time to digest them, just contact Amy.
Okay. Thank you, John. Would the council like to take a 5-minute break? 5-minute break?
Sure.
Okay, 5-minute break. We'll resume at 10 after. Thank you. All right, we'll call the meeting back to, order at 11:14. The next item, we're going to move on to the administrative agenda. Item A is the Royal Auction Group, Inc. piggyback contract. This is to authorize the town manager to execute a piggyback contract with Royal Auction Group, Inc. for auctioneering services that was competitively procured by Pinellas County. Is there a motion to authorize the town manager to execute this piggyback contract?
I'll make a motion to authorize town manager to make this piggyback contract.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? What are we auctioneering off?
Well, no, it's just a blanket contract, so anytime we have something to auction off, we have a process to do it.
Gotcha. Any further discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. The next item is B, which is Resolution 22-14, Florida Division of Emergency Management. This is to adopt Resolution 22-14, authorizing the town manager or designee to apply for and administer a grant from the Florida Department of Emergency Management Mitigation Bureau in the amount of $536,513.25 for residential intrusion prevention drainage on Williams Drive. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution 22-14?
I'll move to adopt Resolution 22-14.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
So, Roger, this is for Williams Drive. So how did this grant come to this property? Is this area one that has particular drainage problems?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a countywide local mitigation strategy. Projects have to be in that queue to be evaluated for consideration for state funding. And we've listed all our streets that we haven't worked on yet, but have drainage problems. You have to remember that the streets that we've worked on to date, a lot of them didn't have really drainage problems. It was just that we were conveying the county's drainage, so we added drainage to that pipe. Now we're starting to work on the streets that actually have their own drainage issues that need to be addressed.
So these are the tier one.
These are the tier one priorities.
Christy Corey for the record, and we were awarded this grant, so we're at the point where we're just administrating it.
Christy, I don't often get you at the mic. I had a constituent ask me about water restrictions, I think they're back from 2011, 2012. Are those still in effect?
They are, yes, correct.
Could you just spend, I'm sorry if my colleagues will indulge me, spend just a minute just telling folks what that means to people who live on the island?
In regards to the restrictions,
Yes.
so basically the watering restrictions are in place basically for, savings of the water, basically. Do you want to know what they are? Because I don't have them in front of me.
Just in a nutshell. I mean, can you just, does it involve using your sprinkler? What is it? What is
That,
it?
well, it's actually everything, but that would be irrigation primarily. So you can, if you're cleaning your home with, I can't think of the name of it. I'm sorry.
Power washer?
Power washer. So as long as it has an auto nozzle, even your hose, as long as it has the auto where it's turns off automatically, you can use that at any time. But the water restrictions in particular are just for irrigating.
Council Idaho, we can add a little blurb to that to our summary / news release to help educate people to the fact that they're still in place and what they can do to conserve water.
And
That'd be helpful. It's just been a while since we've talked about it. That's good information. Thank you.
Roger brought it up this morning, so I actually updated it, and we're going to update it on the website also, just so it doesn't say
We can put a blurb on the
2011.
water bill.
Okay, perfect. We can do that too.
That would be great. Thank you very much.
And it includes wells, but does not include rain barrels. You can do whatever you want to.
Correct.
Great.
So-
Thank you.
So when would the folks, assuming this goes through, when would the folks on Williams be experiencing this project?
So currently, we're going to take tier one out to bid, hopefully in the next month, hopefully in the next 30 days. And then that approximately takes about 6 weeks. And then we'll go through the selection advisory committee and then come back to council. So we're looking probably late this year.
Fall, okay.
Right.
Good. Did you hear that, Williams? Okay. All right. Any other questions? We'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is final public comment. We have a gentleman here.
Thank you. Again, I'm Jason Oben with Woodland Custom Homes. I just wanted to get clarification at the end of my comments. When you had asked questions of the town manager, it seemed like you had mentioned that these ones that had previously been in progress would be able to move forward through the variance process. And I wanted to get clarification on that.
Yes. I mean, I don't know specifically what your question is, but
The 6 to 8 projects that we already started being able to submit them under the 10-foot side setback code, submitting the variance process and the ability to have them approved.
considered by council, yes.
Okay, so considered, okay, so I just wanted to ask also that, kind of a little bit of education about the process and where we're at right now. When we get a signed contract, we have to go for building truss layouts. Truss layouts right now are taking anywhere between 12 and 16 weeks from vendors. When the truss layouts are complete, they have to be submitted to the engineer, who has to complete the engineer drawings before the engineered drawings can be submitted to the building department here for approval. The reason that I'm mentioning the timeline and the process of which it takes is that if a window was granted retroactively for us to apply for these permits under the previous side setback, there isn't anyone that hasn't started the process already that would be able to get in within 60 days or 90 days if such was granted. So only the ones obviously that are very much well underway. All these people are customers we contracted last year. I just wanted to bring that up and hopefully that's under consideration to be able to do that, because obviously there's no guarantee of that's the question I was asking, that would be considered for variances, not necessarily approved. And if we have to then go through the variance process, be denied, and then go back and redraw these plans, start from scratch, get truss engineering, then unfortunately, these people are talking into 2023 before they'll be under construction, and we'll be in a completely different environment by then.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, any further? I don't see anybody else. We'll close public comment. Town managers items.
Well, I'm just going to say we're almost through season. It seems like traffic is getting a little bit better, and we're extremely happy about that. And we'll take a deep breath and we'll start working on our hurricane planning and budget immediately thereafter that.
Okay, thank you.
I think I'll just do this under town manager items, Mr. Mayor, if I can, as opposed to my items, because it benefits, I think, everybody. Roger, I want to kind of go through just really for more public information. And I think quite honestly, there's some really good news that we need to continue to share with the public about some of the things that are happening on this front. But the 3 projects that we've discussed a lot here at the council and have been supportive of, the Bay Oaks Bayside and Times Square project, we took out a loan gosh, year and a half ago for, was it 10 million? Was that the total loan? And correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the town had planned and has already provided for the debt servicing of that loan, roughly half of which the previous council had raised the millage rate to address, and then this council took the water and the stormwater systems off the general fund and created and had them self-funding through their various utility structure, and that took care of the debt servicing piece. And since then, now we're just going to walk through each one here because I think there's a lot of information out there. In the Times Square front, on the awnings for the Times Square buildings, because they were private businesses, we had to spend $1 million in general funds, which again took $1 million off that budget for that. And again, this is all under the premise that we know there's going to be cost overruns because of supply chain issues and inflation, et cetera. But on the Times Square front, I know the town has gotten a grant for $1 million. And I understand the legislature in the budget has an allotment or an earmark, if you will, is it $1 million for Times Square? Is that right? And then Roger, correct me if I'm wrong, is there another prospective grant for Times Square in the
So
offing?
There's two $1 million grants for Times Square. There's a $1 million grant for Bay Oaks also, okay? And then I think everyone's aware of the national fitness grant we got for the exercise, little exercise stations at the front of the property. Yeah, I understand people get confused. There's three $1 million grant. And of course, we just talked about Williams a few minutes ago. And actually in the state budget, there's another $500,000 stormwater grant.
And in addition, there could be some potential relief from the $3.5 million the town got in COVID relief funds from the feds. Some of that money could be used for water and stormwater projects within those three projects. Is that correct?
This council actually had a debate about that and set that as policy.
Right. So that's again, some more potential relief. And I understand also certainly the parking fee increase that passed at the last budget, that the purpose of that parking increase was to provide for a parking app as well as to cover parking or cover cost overages for those three projects. So that funding, I assume, is accumulating as well and could provide some of that relief.
Right. So just to be crystal clear, Councilor Adall, the total of the three projects is more than $10 million. And the reason for that paradigm, more so than anything else, was when the Bay Oaks project changed from just the entry lot to a redevelopment of the park. So we knew that we needed to raise additional funds if we were going to be able to complete all three projects. And I believe I told the Bay Oaks committee that the better opportunity for grants would be with Times Square, but those grants provide relief to the overall three project budget. So I think we're doing very well with respect to using grant funding to augment the town's contribution. And while this builds the three buildings, the three projects, we still, with Bay Oaks, have to outfit the interior once the building is built. And I think that's where some of our Council Beach's initiatives will come to bear.
I think it's just helpful. And at some point, I know we're getting close to a budget process, but at some point it might be good to kind of jot all this down so the public could be aware that we're making progress. And even with supply chain issues and with inflationary pressures, the town is taking actions that are positive with respect to these three projects. And I just think there's a story to be told there. And I think it could be helpful for folks, particularly as we begin to wrestle with the lighting issue for Estero Boulevard, just to get a better sense of the health of our financial situation for the town. And I just think these conversations are helpful. That's all I've got.
Yeah, just to add to that, two things. One is that we have the auditors coming in April, and I believe you're going to hear that the town's financial position is healthier from last year. So we're definitely trending in the right direction. The last thing is I want to be clear that the way the $10 million loan is set up is that there's a balloon that will be due after a period of time. And the actions we're taking now is to minimize that balloon so that we'll either have to pay off or refinance at the end of that loan. So everything we can do to bring our costs down on the front end minimizes that number.
Very good. Thank you.
And I would just kind of to expand on what Councilman Adderhole said, that I like, what you did with the budget with, more of the charts and things that I would appreciate maybe as these projects get some steam to just give us the budgetary snapshot of where we are with it, how much has been spent, how much we think there is to be spent, where we are in the projects.
Right. So right now we have, with Bayside, it's pretty much a known quantity at this point. It's under construction. And, notwithstanding some expenditures of contingency and or change orders on that particular construction contract, that's pretty well fixed. Times Square
But
and
Mr. Town Manager, just for the public's benefit, and I don't expect you to have this, know this off the top of your head, for Bayside, those numbers, we actually have those numbers, so I appreciate you providing those. That's $885,346 for construction and $198,329 for design plans, just for
that-
public consumption.
Yes, that's correct. Subject to, again, to any contingency expenditures and or
Understand.
change orders. With respect to Times Square and Bay Oaks, those contracts have not been bid yet. So, in the very dynamic construction cost estimating / contracting world / supply chains issue, we're kind of holding on with our fingernails here to see what's going to happen with those. But we're operating on the assumption that we're going to be short money, which is why we continue to hustle for every reasonable grant opportunity to see if we can sort of, augment our wallet as we move into those stages of development of those particular projects.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jim, for getting that synopsis. I hope my campaign manager was taking notes while that was being discerned there. Okay, town attorney's items. Anything?
Town attorney has no items, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Town Attorney. Council members' items and reports. We'll start with you, Councilman Allers.
Just if there was any update from FPL about coming in. I know at the last meeting you'd said you're still waiting to hear from their schedule.
Yeah, we have a final date. Amy, do you have that date? I don't have agenda management.
I believe they're coming.
They're coming in April, I know that.
They'll be at the 18th meeting.
Okay, that's all I have. Thanks.
Vice
Mr.
Mayor.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
John actually let me know he has some items to discuss.
Too late. All right, no, okay. Well, we'll get them back in.
Oh, there he is.
John, you have some items?
Yes. Yeah, I apologize.
All right.
Mayor, I thought that the Zoom meeting was going to restart. But anyway, very quickly, as the council knows, Mr. Rude has filed a federal lawsuit against the town, alleging that the town has violated his ADA rights as a result of the denial of the dune crossover that's widely disputed and multiple hearings have taken place. And I just want to inform the council that discovery of that matter is ongoing, and there is a court-ordered mediation that will be taking place later this month. I have spoken with our outside counsel that has been appointed by the Florida League of Cities regarding this matter. Frankly, they're not too bullish on the idea that the mediation will be fruitful as a result, because the parties are so far apart. But I just did want to inform you that that will be taking place. As is very common these days, it's going to be via Zoom, and myself, the manager, and to the extent that Jason Green may be needed, we will be participating or available to our outside counsel when that moves forward. I believe it's April 22nd. Similarly, or to other litigation related matters, I believe I may have mentioned this. If I didn't, then I certainly want to say it or repeat it. All the briefings in the Jameson case have been completed. We're awaiting a determination by the Second District Court of Appeal as to whether or not they're going to conduct oral argument in the matter or just rule on the pleadings. And obviously, when that happens, I will inform you of what that court ruling may be. I think that again, our League of Cities attorneys have put forward a strong case as to the reason why Mr. Jameson's claims fail as factually and legally. If if the council wants, I can forward to each of you a copy of all those pleadings, the initial brief, the League of Cities answer brief on behalf of the town, and then Mr. Jameson's reply brief. Those are the 3 documents that have been filed with the court. And then last but not least, just at the end of last week, we did receive a copy of a court order from the Middle District Federal Court dismissing most, if not essentially all of the claims that Mr. Prasad has brought against the town related to the denial of the right to sell alcohol on the beach. As you all may recall, that did go to the Second District Court of Appeal. The Second District Court of Appeal did rule that Mr. Prasad had a grandfathered right to reinitiate those sales, which he has in fact done. Notwithstanding that, he did file an amended lawsuit in federal court alleging that the time frame in which the town had denied him the right to sell alcohol constituted was a violation of substantive and procedural due process rights, as well as the taking of private property. And in a lengthy ruling that, again, I can forward to all of you if you wish to see it, but somewhat convoluted order, the judge dismissed essentially all of his claims. He did give Mr. Prasad the one last opportunity to file an amended complaint to see if he can overcome the deficiencies that the court pointed out in its order of dismissal. I don't believe that Mr. Prasad can do so, or his attorneys can do so. But again, the court did leave one claim, which was an allegation of procedural due process. It did say that he had met his burden of properly pleading such a claim, so that will move forward. Other than that, that's it, and unless you have any questions regarding any of those matters.
John, just a quick question. If memory serves me, you were redrafting or rewriting or updating the rules and procedures for the council. Is that still an ongoing project?
No, I believe that was completed, but I will check with the clerk.
Well, that's okay. I
believe that the council about 3 months ago adopted those updated rules by resolution.
Remember we talked about the town manager review and the review process, and that was all part of the updated. So that's all been incorporated in the rules and procedures. Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding. I mean, we'll get I'll work with the clerk to make sure that you all get the latest version of those rules.
That'd be great. Thank you.
And
Okay. Anything further?
yeah, John, where are we with the title searches you're going to do for the?
Oh, I'm sorry. And I will actually allow Victor to answer that. I appreciate you. That was the other thing that I had mentioned, but Victor's the one who's been taking the lead on that, and I'll defer to him at this point.
Sure. We performed the title searches. We drafted a memorandum, and I think we can present the memorandum to all of you for Thursday's meeting, so you have time to review it for discussion.
Excellent.
Okay. So John, with regards to Prasad, if he refiles this thing for the appellate court to take another look at, and they turn it down, does he still have the option of going to the Supreme Court of the state of Florida?
No, this is he made and I appreciate the question. So in his latest version of his claims against the town after the Second District Court of Appeal ruled in his favor, he made he asserted allegations against the city that the denial of his right to sell alcohol during that time period resulted in damages to him because of alleged violations of substantive and procedural due process rights, as well as the taking of his property right, the actual right to sell alcohol. Over the course of the last year, discovery's been taking place, and the League of Cities filed with the federal trial court a motion to dismiss what's now the third amended complaint. And I believe the total number of claims that Mr. Prasad asserted in that third amended complaint were about 6 or 7 different claims, and the court dismissed all of them but one. He does have the right to try and replead them, but basically at this point in time, if he can't properly plead those other counts, then they're essentially going to be disposed of, or alternatively, another motion to dismiss will be filed. And if he can't overcome that burden, they'll be substantively dismissed. You basically get 3, at most 4 bites at the apple before the court says, sorry, but you don't have valid claims here. So that's what we anticipate will happen.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think I was up to you, Vice Mayor.
Actually, I had a question. Victor, you mentioned a memorandum for Thursday. I don't see it in the notebook.
No,
Has-
it's not in your notebook. We'll provide it for Thursday's meeting to be added to your notebook.
Okay, Amy, do you have a copy you could give us before we leave today if we stop by?
I'll send the copy to Amy this afternoon, and then she can
We don't have it yet.
Okay.
distribute it.
I just have trouble reading things on my phone, which is
Sure.
how my email
Yeah.
comes. So if I could have a hard copy before I leave, that would be great.
Okay.
My item, some time ago, we had at an M&P meeting reviewed some information about a potential tree ordinance. And I haven't heard much discussion about where that is with staff lately. I just wanted to indicate that I'd like to see that come on. I know that environmental staff's been very busy with a lot of questions about the beach renourishment and all those other things. I don't know if Roger needs to assign someone else to work on it. The tree ordinance.
Sorry, I had to take that.
I was talking about the tree ordinance. I just want to make sure that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle because staff has had extra work to do with the turtle glass relook and the beach renourishment. So I didn't know if Chad needs some help on the tree ordinance.
No,
to
I
make
think,
sure-
well, I think we've drafted language. I think it's going before Murph at their next meeting, and then whatever their comments are, we'll put that on for first reading for the council.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to see where it was in the process. Thanks.
Councilman Adderholt,
I have nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
thank you very much. Councilman Veach.
I have a couple things, and one is a question for Roger, is that I was coming back onto the island after visiting friends last week, and there at night, and there were dozens of rental bikes without lights going with traffic, against traffic, bike path, sidewalk, back and forth. What have we started to enforce the bike light ordinance? Have you reached out to the bike rental companies?
Oh, we did. We're going to speak to them all again and tell them that we're going to inspect their bicycles at their shop for compliance.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause I'd like to see that because we've been really busy and
It's just impossible to deal with an individual bike.
Yes.
So we're just going to go to their place of business and see if all their bikes have lights and bells on them.
And also just as kind of response to some of the people who are coming and complaining about the part of the beach being declared critically eroded. As much as I agree with I don't think I think it's unnecessary to be working on a part of the beach is so actively accruing. I will say that there's a lot of misleading information, and one is that the dune planting, he said 80% of the beach would be planted. It's 15 feet deep out of 800 feet that would be required to be planted. And I'm not even sure if they would be required to do that. That I think, the idea when you're taking a huge swath of beach and you're raking it, that is not a natural beach anymore. That is, you're making an artificial beach, and maybe your idealized idea what a beach is. But, certainly for me, if you're dissing dunes, you're really not getting in my good graces. The other thing I would say is that Guy mentioned one of the good things about the beach is that motorized parasails taking off from the beach. My understanding, those are illegal. And I know in my house, they're like a lawnmower flying over your house. So I don't necessarily see that as being a great purpose for a wide beach. And then lastly, I just say, again, Artful Intersection this Friday. And Ellen Vaughn, if you're out there, I need to get a ticket.
Very good. Thank you. Just a couple of announcements. Tomorrow is the folks down at Bay Beach, EBIA, are having their groundbreaking at 3 p.m. for their their project that's going on down there. And also on Thursday, the folks, London Bay folks down at Grandview in Bay Beach are having their topping off celebration at around noon time. So if we get done with the MMP, maybe we can run down there. But and then also, last thing is again, is the Mound House function on Friday evening, fundraiser. Cheryl and I and a lot of friends will be attending that, and I'm sure we'll have a great time, and we encourage everybody else to buy a ticket and come on down. So if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion?